All right, MYBA, yo, what's up? Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast, entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. Excited for today, episode number 230 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Man, so we're moving right along. We're heading very quickly to the end of 2020, heading into 2021. Subscribe to the podcast, 5 star, wherever you get your pods. That helps us continue to grow the MYB community. And of course, you can always connect with me at champronbrooks.com. Don't forget, definitely for the sold out webinar, I'll be doing the second one for those that have inquired. But we have the real estate investing in 2021 webinar workshop that I'm hosting. That is Sunday, December the 27th at 4 p.m. Central Time. We've got a packed house. Zoom limits me to 100 people, so I've got 100 people strong. Thank you for all those who have registered. And we're just going to go through, without any fluff, without any BS. We're just going to go through what I do to connect with the banking behind real estate investing, how you can get access and connect with hard money lenders, private lenders, traditional banks, credit unions, that sort of thing. And do some wholesaling, different ways that you can get involved. I'm gonna challenge the myth to no cash, no credit. One of those is true, one of those is not so true, and I'll tell you which one it is and why. And so we're going to get into that on what should be a beautiful Sunday, right before we end 2020. So thank you all so much for that. Listen, today's guest, I'm excited, man. My guy, he's got Memphis roots. You guys know here at MYB, I'm here in Memphis, Tennessee, and our guest today has some Memphis ties. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Jeremy Parker joins me today. He is the CEO and co-founder of swag.com. And that's where you need to go, swag.com, to get into learning more about his organization and his company. And we're going to talk about that and some more reasons why you should go. But Jeremy, man, thank you so much for taking time to be here on the Minding Your Business podcast, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to be here.
Yep. Excellent, man. So, man, let's get right into it, man. For yourself, like I said, I mentioned, you had some Memphis ties, which is always awesome. Ties here to the Mid-South, but, talk about your journey, man. How you got started, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I grew up in Englewood, New Jersey, but my entire dad's side of the family is from Memphis, Tennessee. So it was really cool to connect on that. Yes, I used to go there my entire childhood. It's kind of like my vacation spot, Memphis. Yeah. And, my grandfather went to University of Tennessee, and my family went to University of Memphis. So there was some definitely rivalry. But I grew up on the Northeast, Englewood, New Jersey, right outside Manhattan, and I was modern Orthodox and Jewish, so that's kind of a kind of thing. But my background is very interesting. I always grew up wanting to be a branding guy. I was always fascinated by commercials. It's kind of a weird thing as a kid to always be interested in how people tell stories through the medium of advertising. Yeah. When I went to college, I went to Boston University, and I looked at the curriculum, and I saw what is the marketing curriculum versus all the other curriculums. And I realized when I was very heavily going to marketing, I thought, let me just look at the film curriculum to see what they do. And film and marketing were really the exact same thing, except for film would teach me how to make videos. And this was at the onset of YouTube, and I thought that would probably be a valuable skill to have. So I went down the film path, and I became a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker. In 2006, I was junior in college. I won the audience award at the 2006 Vail Film Festival. It's a really large film festival. My documentary won. And I remember the next day I was at the celebrity brunch, and there's celebrities on one side of the room and these kind of struggling artists on the other side of the room. And I really kind of did an internal gut check. Am I good enough? Is this my real passion? And I ultimately decided that maybe it wasn't my real passion. I wasn't really in love with film. And it kind of set me on this path of being an entrepreneur. So really right out of college, I started my first business. I learned a lot. I failed. I grew other things. And it kind of took me this long journey to where I am today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And so, so how was your experience there at Boston University? Because I think you mentioned your dad attended there as well. So
my dad went to BU. My mom went to BU. It was definitely in the family. No, I really loved it. It was it's a city school, but it has some sort of a campus. And I really loved it. It was close enough to home, but not too close.
Yeah. There you go. So some of those early businesses and things like that, Jeremy, that you were working, man, what were those experiences like? Did you have, partners? Were you kind of flying solo?
Yes.
Did you bootstrap them, or, were you loaded down with cash, or,
No,
what was kind of
no.
your thing?
Bootstrap. When I graduated college, I had no business experience whatsoever. And
Yeah.
my idea was, let me start a company. And it didn't really matter what it was, but I thought to start a t-shirt company. Because I thought t-shirts sounded something relatively easy, which I found out it wasn't. But we learned how to do marketing and PR, manufacturing, how to build an e-commerce site. I mean, this was pre-Shopify days, so things were a little bit more difficult to launch a business at that point. And I thought I would learn as much as possible to really know what I was good at, what I enjoyed. And I started that with my cousin Ben. And ultimately, we were selling a lot of these really high-end t-shirts. We were selling like literally $300 t-shirts.
$300 t-shirts?
$300 t-shirts. Yeah, the idea was that what if you could make t-shirts like a piece of art? So we hired a world-renowned tattoo artist. It was limited edition. It was all this like amazing, beautiful art. And what happened is we launched those t-shirts pretty much at the worst possible time. This is right at 2007, the recession, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns went bankrupt. So all these stores that we were selling to, went under. It was really a horrible time to launch a business, but obviously we didn't know that before we launched it. But what happened was it set me on this trajectory, because what I did was I came up with this marketing initiative to tie the prices of our shirts to the price of the Dow Jones. So for every 100 points the Dow dropped, we would give a discount on their t-shirt price. And I wrote this to Mark Cuban. At the time, I was really trying to learn as much as I can about being an entrepreneur. And one of the main blogs that I used to read was this blog called Blog Maverick by Mark Cuban. And I wrote him a note and I said, Mark, this is what I'm doing. And he ended up promoting that article or that note that I sent to him to his audience, which was amazing. And we got a lot of sales. And then it got picked up by Ad Age, and Ad Age wrote an article. And it kind of led me on this path of meeting this guy who runs a large company in the promotional product space. This is kind of how I got into this business. Took a liking to me. We connected, we hit it off, and basically, like every month or so, I'd have like a couple of lunches with him. And he said to me, this big CEO of this global company, he said, Jeremy, I love you, man. Any idea you want to start, I'll support you. So I started a business under his label called Vote for Art. And the idea was this: I went to Boston University and I never owned any Boston University apparel. Apparel just didn't seem cool to me. And I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if I could reimagine schools' logos? So students could design the Boston University logo, the University of Memphis logo, Oregon State, all these different logos, and the winning design would sell at the bookstore, be printed on t-shirts, sell at the bookstore, sell at the football stadium, just make college apparel cooler again.
Right.
So we ended up launching at 200 universities over the next 3 years, did major sales to these bookstores and to these collegiate apparel. And it kind of got me hooked into this, promotional product world. I never knew about it. It's kind of like I took an opportunity and I ended up going in with just like my mind open, like willing to learn as much as possible. Preconceived notions. I then left there after 3 years, started a company with my brother called Tip Media, where basically we were one of the first companies ever to do product placement in YouTube videos. So now you're just scrolling through Instagram and you see Kendall Jenner and she's making $1 bajillion posting a product on Instagram. Right. This was pre-Instagram. This was when YouTube stars were literally living in their parents' basement, making no money whatsoever.
Right.
Stars are multimillionaires now. So what we did is, what if we could get State Farm, Colgate, Verizon into the YouTube videos? Like, what if we could match them up with deals and get these YouTube stars who are getting the millions of views, get them paid for it? So we ended up doing deals with State Farm, Colgate, Verizon, Wonderful Pistachios, big global brands, and we made a lot of these YouTube stars tons of money. And then we expanded and we said, well, now that we're helping all these YouTube stars, what if we did deals with actual real celebrities, like major celebrities on Twitter? At the time, these Twitter celebrities I'm talking about had like 1,000 followers. Now those same celebrities have 80 million followers. So it was the onset of these social media waves. And these people on these platforms didn't really know how valuable it was. It was kind of like buying oil before they knew how valuable oil was. So we bought celebrity rights to literally the biggest celebrities you can imagine. And now they have multiple millions, and we own their licensing and we own their rights to their social media feeds. So we ended up packaging this deal with the YouTube celebrities and these real celebrities, and we ultimately got sold to a publicly traded company. So it's like, it took me on this like long journey, but throughout the whole process, I was always fascinated about the promotional space. It's kind of like one of these weird things. Like once you fall into it, you fall in love with it. And I always realized that the time I was doing promotional products and I was selling to these colleges and I was going to these trade shows, the process for buying swag was very old, broken, and fragmented. Very old. It was like phone calls, presentation decks, catalogs to close sales. It didn't make sense. And what happened is over the last 10, 12 years, the buyer shifted. The buyer is now this millennial buyer. They don't want to speak to people on the phone. They don't want to search through thousands of products. They want things to be streamlined, automated, like a great experience. So I said, let's build swag.com. Let's build the brand, the go-to brand in the space, and just make it really easy for customers to purchase.
Yeah, no doubt. Wow, man. So you were on kind of the genesis of social media. Because I remember just personally, just as a consumer, getting on Twitter, and I think one of the first celebrities I kind of saw on there was Shaquille O'Neal, former NBA player, and he's on every promotional. I mean, you talk about promotional stuff, he's everywhere with all sorts of different brands. But I remember seeing him on there and thinking, and I wasn't sure how long this was going to, kind of go and if it was going to be a big deal, but it turned out to be, obviously, it's a huge deal, right? So, that's amazing that you and your team were involved in that, Jeremy, kind of from that genesis piece of when celebrities first were getting on there. And I don't think anybody really knew, back then it was, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, Facebook and Twitter were kind of those early ones. And, nobody really knew kind of what that was going to end up being. Right. But, for you to have that foresight to see kind of where the marketplace is going, that's kind of that disruptor, right. That sees, kind of where things are going before everybody else does and is able to maximize that opportunity. Was there pushback in doing that in the early days? Did, either from the celebrity or from their people, their camps?
Now, what celebrities really didn't realize how valuable it was. Honestly, I thought they were pulling the wool over our eyes. Honestly, when we were talking to them, they were like, I have 3,000 followers, I have 5,000 followers, I have 20,000 followers. Like, it wasn't massive reach at this point, but we just had a really good feeling, and we just saw how valuable it was for the YouTube stars. The same thing with the YouTube stars. Like, they actually had the viewership, they had the millions of views. They just weren't monetizing it. They didn't know how to monetize it. And I remember we were watching, so me and my brother were watching American Idol one day, and they were drinking out of Coca-Cola cans, right? And we're like, these guys don't drink Coke, but it's product placement. So why can't these same YouTube stars do that Coca-Cola drinking and make enough money? Like, they should be making money. They're getting more eyeballs. They have more passion and viewership. Like, they should be making the money. So we felt like this is just a great opportunity. Let's get in. It was like the Wild West. No one knew how to make money. But if you took a unique approach to positioning the brand and saying, you would really appeal to Verizon. Like, the Verizon audience is your audience. You guys should sync up. It made a lot of sense. And the same thing with the celebrities. How we actually did it with the celebrities is unique, because we didn't want to come across as like this celebrity shilling deals, right? We didn't want to do that, like where people just promote whatever. So we wanted to democratize in some ways, like Oprah's favorite things, right? So we go to a big celebrity and we say, you tell us the top 100 brands that you buy from. We don't want to tell you the deals to do. You tell us the deals that you actually would really love to promote because you actually love it. Your favorite toothpaste, your favorite hair dryer. You tell us. Like, I don't even know what you like. You tell me. And then when we have that list of 100, then I can go to those brands and say, X, Y, and Z celebrity, major, influencer really actually loves your stuff and wants to do a deal and wants to promote you. You want to do it. So it's like the reverse approach to getting deals. And really bought into it because he was super authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's authentic, it's streamlined, and there's a real need, right? So versus the opposite way of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. You just did the opposite and made sure that there was a match, right? So and that probably saved that company millions of dollars, because versus having to go, I mean, we were using Shaq earlier, so versus having to go to Shaq and ask him, will you promote us, and then now you've got to go through the back and forth, and Shaq's got to do all his due diligence, and then he's got to come back and say, not really my thing, because I really support actually your competitor, right? Or something like that. That's really what I like. Or the celebrity that decides to do it, but it's not really on board. It's just a check. It's a bag. And so they're just like, I'll do it for a little bit, but I really don't care, so they don't put much passion or effort into it. You're kind of circumnavigating that then at that point, Jeremy, and then you're bringing, you're finding out what Shaq really likes. What does he enjoy? What does he really support? And then connecting him, and forming that bridge for him to walk across, and that other company to walk across to where they can do business. And now there's there's a real passion and enjoyment there, and there's a real connection.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's tremendous, particularly at that time, because like you described, I mean, that was kind of we got unrest time now. We'll get to that, with the pandemic, but during that time there was a lot of things were kind of unnerving. I mean, social media really kind of took off right after that kind of downturn in the economy, and people didn't really know, technology was advancing, and people didn't really know kind of where the fit was. I think there was this kind of dichotomy between, how much do you adhere to the technological advances versus the way things had always been done, right? And now we've seen through the pandemic, through those years since the 10 plus years of social media, that those that were not agile and did not adapt were grossly left behind, right? And their brands became outdated very quick. So it's interesting how you had that, again, that foresight in the very beginning of that. Jeremy, you talked about the beginnings of swag.com, and the motivation behind that. How does it operate today? How many people are on your team, and what's kind of your day to day with that?
Sure. Yeah. So we started the business in 2016. So we're really just finishing up our 5th year, January 2016. It's been an amazing ride. Our first year of business, it was me and my co-founder, just two of us. We were like traveling salesmen. We didn't have money, we didn't have resources, we didn't have money to grow into Google ads. But our early days was, we just need to get that row of company logos, right? We need to show off that we can handle big companies. So as opposed to the traditional way of being an entrepreneur and starting a business is that you kind of work your way up. We took the approach again. We said, let's work our way down. Let's start with the Facebooks, the Googles, the WeWorks, these big companies. And if we get those big companies, then clearly all these other smaller startups will trust us and believe in us that we could do it. So the very first day, me and my co-founder, we would knock on doors. Remember, we would walk up and down the hallways of WeWork, literally giving out flyers and talking to whoever was willing to talk to us, giving crazy deals, just trying to get some deals. Our first customer was Facebook. We then went to WeWork and they said, who else do you work with? And we said, Facebook. And they probably assumed we had thousands of other companies, but really it was just Facebook. So we did that and we repeated that cycle. And we did about like 350,000 in sales the first year. The second year, we learned as much as we can from those early conversations, right? Every single buyer we were talking to the first year, it was more of like a learning experience. It was like, what should be the right platform to build? We then launched the first version of our e-commerce site in 2017 and did about 1.1 million through the site. Then we got the site better, keep refining, keep listening to our customer, keep building upon it. We did about 3.1 million in the third year of the business. The fourth year of the business, we did about 6.9 million. This was last year. This year, we were on track to do 14 million before the pandemic hit. This is January, February time. Our January, February numbers were double January, February of last year. Pandemic hits, world's falling apart, it feels like. Our industry as a whole has been getting crushed. Think about it. The marketing teams are no longer going to trade shows, right? So that HR managers that typically buy swag for onboarding new hires, no one's hiring right now. That business is put on hold. The office manager that typically buys swag for the internal office, company culture, no one's going to the office right now. So it was a 4-month period where it was very kind of touch and go. We were nervous. We had to adapt. We had to shift our budgets. We had to made certain cuts, all these different things. Ultimately, we found our place, a really sweet spot. So before this pandemic, about 2 years ago, rewind a little bit, we had this idea that the industry was shifting, right? We felt like the industry was shifting as a whole, where people were going to be working from home more than going to the office. So we started building our swag distribution platform in middle of 2017. So we were very early to do this. And we felt like instead of people buying 100 t-shirts and shipping it to their office, which is historically how the industry works, they could do that, or they could click a button and we could hold their 100 t-shirts in our fulfillment center and then give them the tools to distribute those 100 t-shirts to 100 different locations. So to all of the remote employees, to keep the company culture thriving even when no one's in the office, to send the best customers to engage, to send to their best leads to help close sales. If someone's doing a virtual event, now you can humanize the virtual event by sending swag in the mail. So we had this idea about 2 years ago and we really started to build it. Now when the pandemic hit, it went from a nice to have feature to frankly a need to have feature. The last 4 months of our business have been the best 4 months that we've ever done. In November, last month, we did over 3.5 million in sales for the month of November alone. And this year we are going to hit our $14 million mark. So the whole industry as a whole is down, 40% or more, and we're going to be up over 100% this year versus last. Our team is about 40 people at this point. And we're growing, and we're just trying to grow sustainably. We don't want to be this like high flying VC backed company that's just dumping money into growth. We want to grow profitably, and we're really trying to focus on all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that streamlined agile approach, and again, it's another example of, like you talked about with the, the influence of social media and YouTube and that sort of thing earlier, Jeremy. You did the same thing as coming into the pandemic, so you take the hit on the chin, and here's, I think, where it kind of turns a little bit, and the impact, almost irregardless of industry, right? Your industry was heavily impacted, rather than kind of sulk and kind of whine and kind of cry and, and worry, you immediately activate, right? So you jump into, okay, where's the behavior, changing. And I think that's what I kind of, see from you and your team is you're able to kind of, witness and observe the changes in behavior in consumer psychology and what they gravitate towards, and then add that into your business model to where your core, and here's a point I want to make, the core of your business model didn't change, right? With what you just described. You didn't jump and start, going down rabbit holes with, chasing the hottest thing, right? Because you're trying to survive. I think you took a more of a calm approach. And like you said, you had already started the building blocks of it years before, right? As you saw changes in behavior, advent of technology, companies becoming more, accepting of the workforce, not all being in one kind of homogenous office, right? And then how that impacts your industry. And so I think that's something for those that are listening to take away, is that ability to be flexible, to be agile. You don't have to change your core principles, right, and your standards. What you did was you just evolved to balance with what the consumer is asking for, right? They're telling you what you want. I think it's incumbent upon us as business owners to be able to listen, right? And then, find out creatively how we can incorporate what we do to match that need, that pain point, right? And I think you solved a pain point, which is major. You said this, which really stood out, which is, for business owners at various size companies, for those that this is new, right? And they feel like they don't have the control. And, you said it, how do we keep our brand and our company culture internally, right? It's one thing with our customers, but internally with, our employees, our vendors, and that sort of thing, our supporters. How do we do that, right? How do we keep that brand, in front of them and strong, right? When they're not seeing the branding on the wall in the office, right? Where, and that sort of thing. And so, I can see how that was, not only tremendously profitable, but I think, again, that storytelling that's you allow companies to still do during a pandemic, because companies realize like their employees are people too, right? They're dealing with this at the same time, right? It's not just the external customer. And so, yeah, I think that's tremendous, to say the least, and how you guys were able to somewhat pivot, but not just do it just solely out of survival, but here's also to still have the vision to move forward. And I think for some business owners, they may have fell victim to that during this pandemic.
I think that's 100%. You got to hit the nail on the head, because I was talking to a lot of my friends who are in other industries and same industries. A lot of people took the approach this year as like a wash. Like, let's just throw 2020. Who cares? Let's bunker down. Let's just, hide. Let's, lick our wounds and do all that kind of stuff. And my feeling was, our team's feeling was just, there's so much opportunity right now. Like, every single one in our industry is hunkering down and hiding. We have a real great opportunity to jump over them. If we the pedal to the metal, we really push forward really hard. We think what other people are not doing, and we're focusing on what the customer actually wants and giving them a great experience. Whether it's a marketing team that hasn't been able to go to a trade show or hasn't been able to market how they traditionally market, companies still need to survive. They're going to be thinking of ways to engage with their best customers. Why can't we help out there? Employees, as you said, everyone's working so remote. Everyone's so disconnected. how does an office manager, when they typically would be able to, throw like a happy hour or a lunch for everybody, how do they still engage with their team and keep the company culture thriving? How do they show their team that they're appreciative of all their hard work? Everyone is working from home. Everyone's so scared. Everyone knows somebody who's been sick with these things. Everyone has become a teacher, an at-home teacher at this point. Like, how do you really think about how you connect with your employees and really understand what they're going through? And even like selling it to our customers. Like, we don't just offer gifts now on our site that are good for like, a college age kid or over college, like an employee-based age person. We're doing gifts that could be appealing towards kids, because we know if we send a gift to one of our customers, like a crayon set, that's going to be used to give to their kids and connect that and foster that kind of community, is saying, we know what you're dealing with. Here's some things that could hopefully help, that could, give your kids something, because we know that, your family is like our family. And especially as an employee, you have to think about not only your team, but your team's family, because everyone's going through stuff. So we're just constantly trying to think of, and we believe this is going to be shifting for the long haul. Whether this pandemic ends soon, which we all hope and pray that it does, our feeling is people realize that they can do business outside the office. Now, whether that means 100% remote or whether that means a couple of days in the office, there will still need to be this distribution platform that really does engage. I don't need to go to that business meeting across the country. Maybe I'll just send them something in the mail to try to do it. We'll figure out how you can automate and streamline the experience. And what's really exciting about what we're doing, why I feel so passionate about it, is that we don't just have an e-commerce experience or just have a distribution experience. We have both of them together. So when you're going on our site, you could buy swag in a matter of seconds through our e-commerce experience. During the checkout flow, you could input your address and we'll ship it directly to your office, directly to your home, fine. Or you could click on a button and it tells our system, now just hold those 100 t-shirts in our fulfillment center for warehousing distribution. Now you can distribute swag by sending it to one address. You could send the swag to 1,000 different addresses at once. If you don't have the recipient's address, we've created a simple system that you could create a recipient branded landing page. Imagine you have all these people's email address, but you don't know what t-shirt size they are. You don't know where they live. You don't know what product they want.
Right.
Second, you select on a couple of products, you create a landing page, you blast out a link, people click on the link, they select their product to t-shirt, they input their address, it speaks to our system and we can distribute it. So it makes the entire process of distribution easier. Then we take it a bit further. Now we built it where you can have a marketing closet versus a sales closet versus your London office and New York office. You could break it down by department, by budget, by location. So only your marketing team sees the marketing closet, and only the sales team sees the sales closet. So you could really break it down by department, by permission settings. I could say, Jennifer on my team, if she tries to distribute something over $100, it will need to be sent to me to approve or reject it. Like you could really break it down by all these different kind of levels. And we're really learning from our customers. That's the main thing. Listening to our customers, hearing what they want, and then building it. Like there's no way for me to know the right things to build all the time. I have a vision. We have a vision. Our company has a vision. Our team has a vision. But ultimately, it's the customers that are directing decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, how, the streamlined nature of that. And I'm thinking of someone like myself that was once in corporate and I was on the retail function. So I worked a lot with the marketing teams, and that was always a challenge. I would come in from that retail sales side and say, hey, let's send out some, personalized swag to, these folks. And it's, well, Ron, do you have, you have the names, but that's about it. Maybe email addresses, but I don't have everybody's address. What size is everybody? Well, I don't know. Hell, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and so that's always that, there's that lag time of having to go and then gather all that stuff and wait for people to communicate back. And, as what's not at the top of everybody's priority list is telling Ron what their t-shirt size is, right? So now you're waiting, days, maybe weeks, for someone to respond to you for that type of stuff. Whereas, you're able to, kind of circumnavigate that by creating, again, this system that allows us, to send out that information in a streamlined, more direct fashion. And then obtain that, and at the simultaneous nature of that is obtain that information and do the distribution almost all in one motion. That's right. Exactly right. And so what I hear a lot is you're taking away a lot of the clicks. We always talk about that on, with website utilization, that sort of thing, is taking away the number of clicks to get information or get things done. and you're taking away all the motions we used to do, right? So what used to be, and for those of us now that are younger than the millennial, we're looking at all these steps, and it's like, well, that's not really necessary. Do you have to do all this extra movement where efficiency is, how much smoother can you move, and can you accomplish things more in less motion, right, than in the past, right? Whereas some of that was just dogmatic, right? It's just almost a way to kind of control. I can have control because you've got to do this motion, right? And so because you got to do this motion, I've got job security because I'm responsible for everybody doing this motion, right? Yeah, and that's where we're kicking in doors.
We're trying to streamline everything. Literally understand from our customers the pain points, where they come with issues and all those kind of things that take time. Do they really need to have a phone call? Do they need to do back and forth emails? No, they don't need to do any of this. So why can't we just streamline it? Even our site, from the first idea of our site when we were building the platform, even before we built an e-commerce experience, was our instant quote feature. Because when we were doing it manually for the first year, it was me and my co-founder Josh talking to the suppliers, talking to the customers, being middleman, and then somebody would say, "Hey, I want 100 t-shirts." Okay, great. So we go to the supplier. How much does 100 t-shirts cost? Then they would say, I want a front logo print and a back logo print. Great. Then they would change their mind and say, actually, I only want a front logo print, or I want a sleeve logo print. Actually, my logo had 4 colors. Now there's 2 colors. So we would have to go back and forth and try to price this out. And I was like, the quote itself is like 9 hours of my time, and the order is so small. What if I just gave the customer the ability to play around with it, input their variables, select their quality, how many print locations, how many colors in the print, press a button. Now on our site, every single product on our site has the instant quote feature. So even before they go through the checkout, they could price things in a matter of seconds, and only when they get approvals of stuff, then they could ultimately check out. So it literally freed up all of our time. It took us, 4 months to build that integration and to the quoting feature, but over the last 5 years, it's probably saved us literally thousands of hours of having to go back and forth with quotes. It's just, so maybe sometimes you invest a little bit up front, and it ultimately pays, massive dividends down the road.
Yep, no doubt about it. Jeremy Parker, our guest today, CEO and co-founder of swag.com. Jeremy, so let's talk about, kind of the mindset behind the business, right? Because, obviously you've had success and you've had the foresight, you and your team, that we've talked about kind of throughout this conversation that you and I are having. But man, what allows you to be able to accomplish these things? Like, talk through your mindset, because you come across as someone that's got a very can do. You're very positive. You go for it, right? I could see the tenacity in the way that you go for in your focus. That's a challenge for a lot of people, particularly in this pandemic, because like you talked about with business owners earlier, it's easy to tuck your head between your legs or stick your head in the sand like an ostrich, and like you say, bucker down, lick your wounds, all those type of things. And I think sometimes a lot of us fall into that. So, what keeps you motivated? What's your mindset that allows you to achieve where maybe others may fall short?
That's a good question. I think for me personally, I remember growing up, I was never a good student. Like, I was probably one of the worst students in the class. So for me, when things became so difficult, frankly, when things in school, I think a lot of what your life is, not just so you could break the cycle, you could change your luck all the time. But for me, it happened that I was such a bad student growing up, and everything came so difficult that I realized maybe it's not me. Maybe it's not the challenge that's really causing me issue. Maybe it's just I wasn't enjoying it. And I really tried to kind of position myself and find out what I really loved. And when I found out what I really loved, things became a little bit easier for me. So having that kind of a lot of, kind of failures really growing up, and having constant failures just gives you a lot of confidence later on in life. You realize it's okay to fail. A lot of people in general, they fear the failure. They don't start something because they're fearing what could happen, or they fear what could happen. But really, there's a famous quote that says, fear killed more dreams than failure ever could, right? Yeah,
that's true.
Kind of unlock your brain to be like, it's okay to fail, or failure is not really failure. Failure is just like a stepping stone. It's a learning experience. Like every single feature that we launch right now, I don't expect it to work from day one. It never does. And I have to instill that into my team that, listen, guys, we're going to launch something. Don't get down if it doesn't work, because it probably won't work. But maybe we could learn something from our early customers. Maybe our customers will tell us how to make it better. And as long as we are okay with learning, if that's kind of part of the cycle and part of the timeline with everything, then we're going to be successful. We're ultimately going to be successful if we listen to our customers, if we take what they have to say, if we keep adapting, if we don't get down about it, if we don't kind of give up before we actually get to the goal. So for me, it's just a constant learning experience. And I'm feeling like, where I am right now, we're doing 14 million in sales.
Yeah.
Last year, we were named the 218th fastest growing company in the US on the Inc. 500.
Yes.
And we're just really at the start. We're really at the start. There's so much room for us to grow as long as we do things in the right way, as long as we keep trying to innovate, learn from our customers, get feedback, try to always be ahead. But as long as we're open-minded that we're not going to know from day one what the right answer is, it's just kind of like in many ways, like a superpower our team has, that we're just, anything's possible. Anything's possible. So that's really the mindset we have to have.
Yep, there you go. What's next for you, Jeremy, and the company? What do you see? I know it's hard to have the crystal ball going through particularly this environment, but as we go into 2021 and beyond, what's next, for you, the company, and then what should we all be, mindful of, for those of us that operate businesses, or maybe we're self-employed or whatever it is? What are some things that maybe we should be, from your perspective, mindful of as we go into this next year? Because here's the thing, it kind of goes back to that mindset you and I were talking about earlier. Yeah, I think this country right now has this intense hope of a vaccine that's going to be this magic fairy dust that they're going to sprinkle all over the country, and all of this pandemic stuff's going to go away, and we're going to go back to what we call quote unquote normal, which was 2019, right? I'm of the mindset that that's not the case. There was reality then, there's reality now, and there's going to be reality going forward, right? And how do you take control of that? How do you seize that? And what's your tenacious focus on your goals to progress forward? Not worried about who's sitting in the Oval Office, and not worried about all the other noise, right, that's out there. And how do you keep your focus? So talk about that from kind of your perspective personally, your company, and then kind of the rest of us.
Yeah, it's obviously hard to know. I always take the mindset of that we can't control, right? The pandemic, personally, there's nothing I could do that will fix the pandemic, right? I'm not going to change anything, but I think we all take a mindset of, you do in many ways have to react to what the real world situation is telling you. I personally have no clue what's going to happen. I pray, I hope that the vaccine will cure it, but I assume there's probably going to be a middle ground where maybe it takes a little bit longer to get back on track. For Swag personally, for Swag as a business, our feeling is distribution platforms here to stay, because we do believe work from home has really accelerated about 5 years from where I thought it was going to be before the pandemic started till now. I do think that will stay, but I do hopefully see that people will need to be hired again. So that whole HR industry, 40% of our business before the pandemic started was our business for HR managers buying to onboard their new hires. That went away for the last year. That probably will go away, but at some point people will need to be hired again, right? The world will have to open up. And at that point, I think we should capitalize on the onboarding kits of new hires. Maybe the distribution will go down a little bit, slightly, even though I think it will probably remain a huge part of our business, because that's the way people are going to be working nowadays. But I do believe a lot of the business that went away will hopefully come back, which will be doubled on top of each other, which will help our business. For me personally, and for the Swag, how we think about it is we want to streamline automation. So right now, the best experience for buying Swag, right? We have this e-commerce experience that's amazing. Then now we've been spending the last 3 years, and really the last year, all of our effort into the distribution platform to allow people to distribute Swag to those remote addresses. The next phase next year is to automate that distribution. What if we could build an API, which we're currently working on right now, or a Zapier integration, or to integration to Salesforce or HubSpot or Marketo or whatever, and you could allow companies to send Swag automatically, kind of like set it and forget it. So it's somebody's birthday in your company, automatically send them Swag. Somebody's 1 year anniversary, the 5 year anniversary. Somebody, you just closed the sale. You want to engage with that person after you close the sale. You haven't heard from a customer in 3 months. Automatically send them Swag. Like, think about all the different use cases of why you would send them Swag. Programmatically set it. Once you buy it on their site, once you're holding an inventory, you should then be allowed to distribute it however you want and make it simple. So that's really where our focus is next year, of trying to do those simple automations.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. As someone that has been a profuse user, you mentioned Salesforce. I think it'd be tremendous an integration into that to, like, say, to do those things, and then, like you say, be able to personalize that. Like you say, kind of set it, automate it, but still have it personalized to foster the human connection, right? That human touch. And I agree with you. I think going into 2021, and I've said this on some other podcast episodes, Jeremy, is that I think what's going to happen, man, is next year is going to be the year of connection, right? The United States of America was challenged this year, right? That first word in the name of our country was challenged. I think you going into 2021, bringing it, kind of down to at the business level, is companies that do a good job of balancing the, like I say, the automation to make it efficient, to make it crisp, right? With that human connection. And I think what you're doing is you're allowing the end user to do that, because those motions that we all had to do, right, to do things, you're streamlining that so that humans can do what they do best, which is connect, right? To be able to tell the story, to be able to, foster and grow relationships. That's what we do best. We're not great at the transactional kind of mundane, technical task, right? Those repetitive we're not the most efficient at doing that, right? The technology is, right? The systems that you put in place are best at doing that. And so I love that healthy balance that you kind of talk about, and being able to create the APIs and things like that to utilize the tools and services that business owners are using already, that they're already integrated with, and have comfort using, with being able to keep track of those key events, those key dates, those things like that, without people having to, again, memorize that or rely solely on an Outlook calendar or something like that. That can always fall in between the cracks, right? Because even the Outlook calendar, it's tech and you can automate it, but it still starts with me, right? And so if I don't put it in the calendar, it don't happen, right? And so that's where I love that. And I think one of the things we can take away from what you said, Jeremy, is that, again, that balance of how do we create less motion in how we foster relationships, right? So how do you, instead of having to do 10 jumps, right, can you do one jump or maybe two jumps and still accomplish it? So with less effort, less time, which reduces cost, and allows people to, then you get more value internally, with people doing things that have more profitable motions, right? And so, I see all that working kind of in concert. And so I think it's a tremendous strategy. I think, pieces of it, no matter what your industry is, MYB, I think you should take heed to what Jeremy's saying in terms of how you create that in your business. And so you have to be willing to invest, right? It's not, it's not something you're going to be able to do on your own. You notice that Jeremy's talked about his team. This is not something, all this is not happening all with just Jeremy on his own, right? And so I think we have to be mindful of that too, Jeremy, because a lot of people listening are a little shy or, quite frankly, afraid to work together and establish teams to do things, right? Everybody kind of wants to have the control and be king of the hill and do it on their own. And, I've seen, I haven't seen really any successful business that was successful by just one person just doing everything on their own. I haven't seen that. Have you? I don't know.
Yeah,
I've never seen that.
I think you can always start by yourself or with the co-founder.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We never had a team. Every year we added people based on need. So start off with your vision. Don't need to grow overnight so fast. Things take time, and be okay with that. Things taking time. I was just thinking, I was taking a walk this morning with my dad. We do walks every morning. And I was thinking that, like, entrepreneur, everyone wants to make it, right away. They look at those movies and they think, people are living in these mansions and they're so successful overnight.
Right.
And it's like, they get rich quick things, like being an entrepreneur. And really being an entrepreneur is you're playing the long game. And you have to be okay with the long game, because whether like swag.com is successful so far, it's been 5 years, which doesn't seem so long. You have to really take back to 10 years ago when I started being an entrepreneur, and all the ups and downs and failures. It's not just what you see at the end. It's not just like the instantaneous. It takes many years of failures and growth and learning and failing and adjusting it's the long game. And I think you have to be okay playing the long game and okay to start small, because you really never know where you could be. Like when I started Swag, I never thought we'd be doing 14 million in 5 years, right? I never thought that. And now you look back, you're like, wow, look how much we've done. But really, there's so much more to go. It's kind of, it's like climbing a mountain. It's like when you look up, it's like, wow, I can never even get close. But then when you get halfway through, you'd be like, well, now I'm a little bit closer. And then you get a little higher. And then you get to the top of the mountain, you realize, you know what, where's more mountain? I want more mountain to climb. So I think everyone needs to start small and just be okay with learning and failing and growing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's tremendous, man. And tremendous kind of insight for us. As we round out this year and go into 2021, I think that's a nice insight for us to take away. And so, Jeremy, obviously everybody can go to swag.com, right? And be able to connect with you. You'll obviously be able to see the different promotional items. I'm actually on it right now. I'm able to see, and even as you were, what's interesting is as you were sharing kind of the intricacies of how you can go into swag.com, I started clicking on items, just on the website as you were saying that. And I saw the ease of which I was able to do so. Like and again, this is not just because you're on the podcast, but I was able to go like right with things like that I would need, right, or that I would use. I did that with 2 clicks, right? And so that's the other thing. And so as we kind of wrap up, talk about from a competitive standpoint for Swag, because obviously there are a lot of promotional websites, right? And there's a lot of individuals, kind of sole proprietors out there doing it. There's the larger companies, which they'll go nameless because they're not paying for advertising. But so talk about how you how you find your place in the marketplace with a saturated industry, because again, a lot of people listening, one of their fears, we talked about that fear factor earlier, Jeremy, one of their fears is industry's saturated, there are too many people in it, right? How am I going to be able to be successful and accomplish my goals and make money because everybody's doing this, right? Yep. How do you balance that?
Yeah, so the industry is very saturated. It's very old, broken, and fragmented. There's about 30,000 promotional distributors. But what was a great insight when we started the business is that there's over 50 companies in the space that make over 50 million in yearly sales. So even at this point, 5 years in, we're in nothingness in the industry, right? Yeah. We have a good feeling that we're getting to that place, but there's just a lot of players making a lot of money, and there's no clear winner. Think about this. If you're thinking to buy promotional products, where do you think to go? There's no like go-to brand. There's no Google of promotional products. It doesn't exist. And if I was Facebook, if I was these big companies going to buy my promotional products, what is promotional products? It's all about trying to elevate your customers' brands, right? Let Facebook's brand shine. Let Spotify's brand shine. Let Netflix brand shine. But there's no go-to brand in the space that even cares about their own brand. Right? Every single promotional product company looks like it was built 20 years ago because frankly it was, and they don't care about what their own brand looks like. So from the very beginning it was, okay, there's this massive audience, there's this massive amount of revenue that's coming through this platform, there's tons of competition, but what are they not doing right? And it was right. And for us, it was kind of a couple of things. It was number one, nobody has a go-to brand. So let's buy swag.com. Let's own that name. Let's own that branding. Let's appeal to today's buyer. Number two, how do you streamline the entire experience? A lot of the promotional product companies in our space are very old, broken, and fragmented, heavily reliant on catalogs of 1,000 mugs, 1,000 notebooks. It's impossible to even find what they like.
Right.
So what we do is let's curate the best of what's out there. Let's only offer the top 25 mugs, 25 t-shirts. Let's make it really easy for customers to find what they're looking for, design it, and buy it in a matter of seconds, right? Make the whole experience streamlined. Then we start focusing on, well, what if we could get products that no other promotional product company can actually offer? Belroy backpacks, No More London. Like, we are getting brands on our site that we're featuring that are not involved in the promotional product space. They've never sold to other promotional product companies because frankly, our brand appeals to their sensibilities. So we're getting this better brand, our own internal brand, better user experience, better products, making it easier. It's curated. That was kind of the idea for the beginning. Let's really focus on today's buyer, the millennial. They don't want to have to sit through thousands of catalogs. They don't want to sit on hold with a phone call. They want to do things themselves. Let's streamline it. And then from there, it became like a Trojan horse strategy where you get into the company one way through e-commerce, and then you upsell them, and then you allow them to buy swag boxes and kit boxes together. And then they have no room in their office for the boxes. So what do? They ask us to hold an inventory for them. So now we're holding an inventory, and we're allowing them to distribute swag to the remote addresses. So it always has to start from one place. You start at the ground level. You start with 1 foot, and then you start to build from there. And that's really it, just kind of learning and building and growing and realizing who your customer is and how can you expand within that customer base and help more customers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice way to kind of sum and kind of wrap that up, Jeremy, for sure. And so swag.com is where you should go, MYB, for your promotional item needs, and connect with Jeremy and his team there. And then when you do, if you reach out, let them know that you heard them right here on the Minding Your Business podcast. Listen, Jeremy, this has been tremendous, man. Learned a lot from you. I think, I've got a go-to now for my promotional items, which I love. That's the great win, I think, for me. And I think many others, is to be able to connect with someone in this space. Because you're exactly right. I mean, it's sometimes kind of a faceless, soulless space. I think sometimes it's just, here's my catalog with a bunch of stuff, or here's my website landing page. But I like how you kind of put a kind of soul to the promotional space, and kind of humanize it. So I really like and appreciate that, man. And again, thank you for your time, man. I really appreciate this. This is tremendous. I want to remain connected with you, and if you find I can be a resource for you in any kind of way, I'm here. You're familiar with Memphis, so that's cool.
Thanks so much, Ron. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast, and looking forward to staying connected.
Yep, absolutely. Sounds good, Jeremy. Take care, man. Best wishes to you and your family, and happy holidays. And we'll definitely see you in 2021 for sure. Major player.
All right, thank you so much, Ron. Appreciate it again. Happy holidays.
All right. Bye. Same to you, man. Take care, man. Bye. So that was Jeremy Parker, our guest today, CEO and co-founder of swag.com. That's in the show notes, MYB. Go to swag.com and make sure that you connect with Jeremy and his team. And if you place an order, maybe just stick in the notes that, hey, I heard Jeremy on the Minding Your Business podcast, episode 230. If you do that for me, definitely let me know. Email me if you like the content. If there's something more you'd like to see, I'd love to be able to connect and hear from you. I appreciate all of you that do email me. I do read those, and I do make sure I try to respond as timely as possible. I love that. So continue to do that. Ron at themybpodcast.com. That's Ron at themybpodcast.com. Email me, good, bad, or ugly. I love that. I get great feedback all the way around. I love it. It helps us continue to improve, helps me to continue to get better. As you heard our guest today talk about listening to the customer, right? And hearing and being able to implement strategies and tactics, execute on those from feedback from the customer. And I like to do the same. So definitely do that. Again, champronbrooks.com. Connect with me there. As you always do. You guys are tremendous with doing that. And so I'm going to get out of here. Thanks again to our guest, Jeremy Parker, with swag.com. Make sure you go there, swag.com, swag.com. Just that simple. And we're going to go forward from here. Remember, 3 things that unite us all. We all want to be a little better for ourselves, a little better for our families, and a little better for our communities. And if we keep that in mind with everybody that we interact with, we'll all make this place just a little bit better. Take care, be great, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Minding Your Business podcast.